when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Well, hello there, book clubbers. How you doing? It's been a minute. Hope you're dancing in your seat. Hope you're having a wonderful holiday season. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hello, Lana.
Hello, and let me tell you, I know that it is hard when we're not here for a week, but I also feel punished for not being able to talk about this book. So I'm happy to be back, happy to make it through the next holiday season, baby.
Yeah, I feel like this book is getting an unfair shake as far as how stop and starty my reading experience is, and I feel bad about that. I'm still enjoying it a lot, but I feel like it's probably not going to rank high in my Malazan Malazan rankings because I feel kind of herky jerky in reading it. I feel bad about that, is what I'm saying.
I feel like my brain is so bad in general that even like the 4-day gap I take between the show and the reading the next show, it doesn't feel that off to me. My brain, it's when it's on and I'm focused on it, it's on. And then when I'm not thinking about it, it's fully off. It's fully out of my head anyway. So I feel like it's still going to be up there for me. But, you know, what are we, only halfway through? I'll save my predictions.
Yeah. There's a lot still to be read. We probably will not have an episode next week because that Thursday is the day after Christmas. So we probably won't be recording next week. So it's going to be another couple of weeks before we record again. Bear with us. We're doing our best. We got travel. Lana is in a new location right now. I'll be traveling next week. So we're trying. We're trying to not have too many gaps, but that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So we got two big chapters. Tons happen in chapter 17. 17 and 18, awesome chapters. Lots to get to. But we do have a non-spoiler topic. We love to start the show with a non-spoiler topic. So if you're not caught up on the reading, you still have something to hang out and talk books with us. And we got a cool topic sent to us at dlcfeedback@gmail.com. It's a great place to send topics. You can also post them on our Discord, which is 5x5DLC in the Discord. A lot of great stuff happening over there, including the book club threads. But this comes from Tyson to dlcfeedback@gmail.com. Tyson says, hello, Jeff and Lana. Jeff's recent discussion of reading on a Filmcast episode had me thinking about my own history with reading and ended up with a possible topic to discuss on the next non-spoiler section. I was a voracious reader in my youth. Books shared an equal time with TV and movie and video games. But with smartphones, then a family, reading got squeezed out of my life until I heard about this new book club that was going to start discussing the Malazan Book of the Fallen series. I was back in. I bought an e-reader. I bought the whole series. I was committed. And I did it. Took about 13 months, but I finished the series and I still... Wait a minute. We're not finished with this. I love it. He says, I still love following along with the YouTube discussions as I find different interpretations of the things I've just flat out missed. It's like rereading the series without actually rereading it. But I had the reading bug again, and I wanted to keep going. The next book was House of Leaves, as I had promised my sister I would finish it so we could discuss it. I struggled to get through that one, but I did it. Next, I really wanted to get something light and fun, so I picked up Bill Bryson's A Short History of Nearly Everything. I'd read other books of his, and they had always made me laugh. Not this time. I've been stuck 3/4 of the way through this thing for months. I can't walk away from it, and I can't seem to bring myself to finish it off. So, here's my suggestion for a discussion topic. Have you ever had a similar situation? A book or other type of media that you felt compelled to complete, but found consuming that media so unenjoyable that you've never finished it off. Can't thank you guys enough for reigniting my reading habit. Love the series and look forward to your discussions every week. Hope your holidays are amazing. Thank you, Tyson. I sympathize with your journey. I'm so glad we got you back into reading. That's one of the goals of the book club, is to reignite reading in myself and in others. And man, it makes me so happy to hear that has worked for you. Lana, what do you think? I know we've talked a lot before about how you will soldier through no matter what.
I have read or watched some absolute trash just because once I've started, I typically must finish. I'd say fully half of the enjoyment I get about something is finding the things I don't like about that. And with really good pieces, it's usually like interesting little tidbits and like, oh, I would have done this different and I like that. But sometimes it is just wholesale, something is awful. And still, because it's 50% of my enjoyment, I'm like, I at least 50% enjoy this experience because I get to talk about how much I hate this thing. So I think this question hits right in my space of unfortunately least challenge. I would have probably consumed so much more wonderful media if I just gave up on trash, but I can't help it. Probably the only thing where I was really, there's been like a couple TV shows that were so bad instantaneously. Tyson's question, I think, broadened it to other media. So I'm going to take a couple liberties here. There's two TV shows in mind that are in particular that come to mind that were supposed to be like comedies that seemed like they could be up my alley that were so awful. One of them, my sister dared me to watch 3 minutes of the episode. Could not get through it. The Santa Clarita Diet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
God. That's with my boy, Timothy Oliphant. I love him.
that guy. And honestly,
I'm an Ola fan.
I love Drew Barrymore. She's a sweetie. What a weird little sweetie. But the writing.
It's an odd tone. That's for sure.
I dare anybody watching this to now go watch 3 minutes of that show. Brutal. And sorry if you like it.
It got multiple seasons, so somebody had to like it.
Ugh, to each their own. And then the other one that comes to mind that I watched one episode of, it just slipped my mind immediately. What was it? Oh my God. It was called I Feel Bad. I don't know if I got more than a pilot episode.
I Feel Bad?
But it was about it was executive produced by Amy Poehler, about a female art director in video games.
That's you.
That should be right up my alley.
Yeah.
I was deeply embarrassed by the absolute 0% research done into what does a video game company look like or do. And it was like the whole first episode was about this woman who I assume was my-ish age, maybe a little bit older, surrounded by a room of like 18-year-old dudes trying to talk about whether or not she was attractive enough. And I was like, this makes me sick to my stomach to watch. It's supposed to be funny. And in the end, she gets empowered and the dudes ain't that bad. But whoo, that was brutal. Those two could not stomach more than one episode.
I used to be like you in that I would force myself to finish. I mean, I think you derive some perverse joy from it, but I used to force myself, particularly books. I had a strict rule. I don't know why, but I somehow remember I talked to you when I was really young. I used to line books up on the couch at my parents' house and be like, okay, this one. And so I'd be like, well, I'm really excited about this one 3 books down the line, but I got to get through all. So I would force myself to finish every book, which in its own way was a perverse self-inflicted wound. But I have, in my old age, I have completely abandoned that
my old age
rule. And it's a slippery slope, right? Because sometimes I'll give up on things too early, and I think that's not great, but because there's always 400 other things I want to experience or use my time for. But I feel like I could do better to stick with things, but I have a number of books I've read like 30% of, and I'm like, no, I got 400 other books I want to read. I'm hopping out of this. I'm jumping ship. But I feel like my time is too precious now to force myself to muddle through when I have this like endless list of things I want to experience for the first time. Yeah.
I feel like with books, I have an easier time of sticking through it, especially if I'm just like awake and powering through because I can read pretty fast and I'll be like, and then it's like over. Even like longer books, at least when I really had no social life, it was like I would just shred through one of those in a week or
Yeah.
two and move on. So it didn't feel like I was spending so much time on it. Probably the one book time I really thought about giving up was in audiobook form. And the audiobook was so tediously written and the book was so long.
Yeah.
And that was probably the one book time that I was like, I see why I don't do this. I don't do this audiobook thing.
Right.
But otherwise, usually it's like, whatever.
I've been doing some audiobook stuff I want to talk about, and we'll do in another episode, but I found an incredible audiobook that I can't wait to talk about at length with you. It's totally unexpected and I am absolutely adoring it, but I've just scratched the surface of it. So I want to wait a little bit, but we'll talk about those soon. But this is a great question. And I wonder if other people are like this, where, you know, you want to finish it. And so you force yourself not to do other things, but then when the time comes to actually do that thing, you don't want to do it. So you end up not doing anything that's related to that media type.
Yeah.
I sympathize with that, but I've gotten over it. And these days I'm just like, nope, on to the next, you know, if I'm not feeling this. And then I always tell myself I'll come back to it. And I don't know how true that is.
I feel like my desire to finish it, even if somebody recommended it to me, if I really don't like it, I feel like it's still the only thing that is my want to finish something is just to be like, it is complete. And maybe there's some amount of something I could go to.
I sympathize with that. I feel guilty about the, like, you know, I have like 3 audiobooks in my Audible app that are 60% finished. And I'm just like, this is the note going anywhere. But, you know, I want to finish them, but
Yeah.
All right. If you'd like to send a topic, please don't hesitate. We love getting your suggestions for topics. Again, dlcfeedback@gmail.com. All right, let's jump into chapter 17. Spoilers starting now. We start with our boy Beak. I like Beak a lot. Beak, our lovable lunkhead, who is uber powerful wizard, but, you know, self-described, not too smart, but lovable in that, I think.
Yeah.
Hanging out with Faradan's Sort. And they are on the trail of 2 Malazan squads that have been murdering people. We'll find out who at least one of those is very shortly in the next couple of scenes. But they're trying to catch up and rein in these sort of marauding Malazan squads that are just murdering Letheri and Idur. And they're trying to figure out who it is. Go ahead.
Wait, they're trying to stop the Malazan people?
That was my understanding, is that I mean, that's what happens, right? Is they catch up to Helian's squad and they're like, hey, slow down, calm down, because he's you know,
they're getting too far ahead. I didn't necessarily think that they were like trying to stop them from murdering people, but they were trying to keep everybody roughly at the same pace.
Yeah, but I also, maybe I got this wrong, but my interpretation was also like, hey, if you murder this many people this quickly, you're
drawing attention.
Yeah, you're blowing our S up, and stop it, because we're not prepared for this.
And was it their group as well that were the ones that sort of had the realization of like, oh man, oh no, that was Tavor. They all the pods, the various groups seem to have that self-realization. In the last chapters, Tavor was like, oh my gosh, all of the people, the Letheri, don't want to be liberated, kind of thing. And then I think everybody's just kind of realizing that on their own in these chapters as well. Anyway,
I agree with that. Yeah. And Beak is also kind of realizing that the Letheri can track the fact that they're using horses and track their horses because they're in touch with the hold of beasts now.
Yeah.
And Sort says, well, hey, Beak, you might have to, you know, use more of your candles, which means more of his warrens. And Beak has this moment where he's like, that would be a bad idea, because I will go Super Saiyan on these guys. I'll kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think we have not seen Beak unleashed for sure. And I feel like Beak is one of those uber powerful people in this world. Yeah. So then we hop over to the aforementioned Hellion squad, and I love this scene. It's so funny. It starts dark, right? Hanno is killed by a Lethari that she thought was like out, and it sits up and kills her, and then Herb punches it so hard that he touches the back of its skull.
Hurts his knuckles on the back of his skull.
Ugh.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
That's a punch.
That's a good punch.
But evidently old Herb.
I also
real hottie,
I didn't realize that we were talking about Herb like he's a god.
Yeah, everybody wants a little piece of Herb. And I love how Hellion's like just hammered and just like, Herb, let's do this.
Time to go. And that's an order.
Yeah. It's HR has some words with you, Helion.
I just also love the combination of, now picturing some kind of Adonis.
Yeah.
And being like, that's Herb.
I know.
It's like,
old Herb, who's the hottest guy. I'm just dreaming about Herb.
Can't stop thinking about Herb.
Yeah, and I like how the female version of this is Masan Galani, where everybody's like, she even likes Herb, and Herb won't get down with her, so he's not gonna get it on with old Drunko over here. And she's like, no, but it's happening. Let's do this. And they're like, Faraday's Swordshare. She's like, oh man.
She's like,
such a buzzkill.
Find some shrubs. We gotta get down.
It's so funny when it's like, oh no, the cops are here or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like Faraday and Beak show up, and they're like, hey, don't kill us. We're here. And she's like, oh man, I was gonna go get it on. And then we sort of get Beak's POV of Hellion's crew, and it's I love how he's just like, what's going on with these people?
And I love in that the first chapter there with that first chapter segment there with Beak, how he's like, me, I'm just an old dummy.
Yeah.
And Ferdinand Sort's like, I don't think you understand what you are. And I don't know I think you've been telling yourself you're dumb for so long that you believe it, but
yeah.
Anyway, onwards.
Ferdinand Sort Sneaky has become like one of my favorite characters because she's just like sees the best in people and expects the best out of them. She's just like
and hates scorpions.
Yeah. Anyway, so Beak is like, hey, we should be aware that they can track our horses, everybody. And that's when Herb is like, does anybody else notice that the Lethari don't want to be liberated? We've been here to like, hey, we're liberating you, and then they're fighting against us. They killed our friend Hanno.
Mm-hmm.
Not cool. And Hellion's like, we should either do this or not. We're either in or we're out. We're doing it or we're not doing it.
And Ferdinand's like, Hellion's right, everybody.
Yeah, she's like,
I
hate agreeing with her, but she's got a good point.
Especially because the way that she puts it, she's like, we're either going all the way in or we're running and we're building so many canoes so fast.
Yeah. We burned all our boats. That was dumb. Yeah. So then we hop over to Fiddler's Squad with Bottle and Korab and Gessler. And we have I love how we get these sort of, now, it's established, so Erikson doesn't need to really, hammer the point home. He just sort of obliquely mentions all these crazy Korab luck moments.
Yeah, I know.
Which I love, where he's just like, yeah, he like accidentally flushed this deer out, and then the deer had like 400 arrows in it, like, I'm like, oh, they were going to ambush us. Like, there's like 400 dudes ready to attack whatever comes out, and a deer's just like, pincushions. So
I
funny.
love that the Malazans, or specifically the bridge burners / now bone hunters.
Yeah.
They seem to have like such a different relationship with things like this, where when we were with the folks in the whirlwind, like Korab, when he's with at Leoman's side, we just see him be lucky.
Yeah.
And be like, whoa, as readers we're like, he sure is lucky. But the
Yeah.
Malazans are like, he's got luck. They like
Yeah.
identify that as a trait that he has
Yeah.
and know to like stick near him in certain ways. And I love that it feels just more like that military training that Korab himself comments on when we get in his chapter of being like,
Yeah.
this is what it means to be a Malazan Marine. These are the things that we'd never even thought about, never would have dreamed of when I was standing at Lehman's side. And I feel
Totally.
like that's a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool how Korab is sort of like gaining an appreciation for the Malazan style of fighting. Anyway, so we have some cool Sapper action where they're blowing mages up and flattening trees and killing Letheri, and Cuddle gets an arrow to the shoulder, and they all retreat. And Bottle looks through some little critter eyes, and he senses that there's something different about the Letheri magic, that it is got this sort of chaos element to it, and that it's more primitive, which is sort of stuff we kind of knew, but interesting to see that he picks up on it. Then we have we hop through a number of other squad POVs. We have Korik, who's sort of like, hey, I just love killing. Killing is so rad. And later on we'll see that he's got a lady who's into that too,
who likes to like killing.
Yeah. Creepos. And then we have Stormy, who's kind of digging on the his trio of dread ladies, the heavies. And he likes that we're fighting this sort of Malazan style, which kind of like hopping around, checking in on all these squads as they're
I think
making
Stormy
their way.
says really explicitly, or somebody says really explicitly, like, we've been marching in columns for how long, and that was never our way. And what we're doing now is more true to what was the foundation of this army, what Kellen Ved originally.
Guerrilla warfare. Yeah.
It's like cool. What is in their hearts, in their training. It's in their blood.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we have this moment where they come to this farmhouse, and Fiddler's like, we gotta go take that farmhouse. And Gessel's like, I don't want to kill civilians. And he's like, yeah, that's a good point. We probably shouldn't do that. He's like, hey, Bottle, can you like magic their minds a little bit and make them not notice us, or plant false ideas in their heads? And go ahead.
Something else I like about sort of, I don't even know if I'd necessarily call it a montage, but as we check in, the mages, which we know every pod basically has one mage
squad
who's there
mage,
to help them out. And because they need to be constantly vigilant, they get no rest compared to anybody else.
Right.
So there's one line that's later on that's like, okay, you're going to do this, and then you're going to get some sleep. It's like, unless you need me. It's like, that's correct. Unless we need you, in which case you will get no sleep, because you are the most critical factor to us making it through this and not just being dead. And so I think Bottle at this point, even before like going to go seek ahead with his magic, is exhausted. And
I love this next little sequence where Fiddler is going to do this fancy bombing technique that he and Hedge invented called the drum, where he shaves cussers down to like the tiniest amount, where it's like super dangerous. Only a complete madman would attempt it, because one wrong move and you blow yourself up. But he and Hedge were such badass sappers that they like, masterminded this crazy technique. And Cuddle's like, I just want to see you because you're so awesome at doing this.
Yeah. I think I pulled a section from that as one of my favorite quotes of Cuddle just admiring Fiddler, because I think Fiddler is so like stable and has been such a constant through all of the books. I think he's one of the characters that I feel like I know the best. And I feel like we rarely see him. It like talks about him like throwing bombs and stuff, but
Yeah.
being like the true energy that feels like his crazy Sapper history is something that is talked about in like revered tones, or like you guys are crazy tones. But this is one of the times that we get to like be in it, and sort of from Cuddle's perspective, who's like Sapper idiot, just taking an armful of them underneath the wall of Egatan, was it? That he like started some of the craziness there, and witnessing his reverence of being like, wow, this is one of the last great people to be doing this craft.
Yeah, it's like once he's gone, nobody's giving an attempt stuff like this. It's like it's like a dying art or a lost art.
Yeah.
And we even get
probably dying art is a more accurate.
exploding art. We get this cool backstory about how they even became, like how Sappers even became a thing, how Moranth munitions even were integrated into the Malazan army, where they were fighting the Moranth, and then they sort of established this alliance. And they said the people who negotiated it were somebody named Aragan, but also Tashran and Onos Tulan.
I know, Tool.
Which I was like, oh, that's interesting. And Whiskey Jack came to Fiddler and Hedge, was like, hey, I got this sack of bombs, and you guys figure it out, but don't blow yourselves up, please. Yeah. Don't do it near me, and don't blow yourselves up. And they just like, I just imagine like a teenagers with fireworks, they're just like trying stuff and just seeing what works, just. That's really funny.
And I love that they have cussers in that box, and they're like, okay, these are definitely not supposed to be used by us. They're supposed to be used by the bugman and just drop from above at a safe distance. And they're like, if we throw it, we'll definitely die.
Yeah. Like, we just figure out how to use these. It's literally a bomb meant to be dropped safely from above. And they're like, we can figure out how to use it. I'm
picturing like kids in a wagon with like a bomb from a plane and being like, how can we throw this thing?
And I love it. We're how many books in, and we're finally getting the breakdown of what each of the munitions names is derived from. I love how he waits that long to lay it all out, but
it's so good.
So cool. Sharpers and burners and crackers and cussers. And like, they just came up with those names, it's like, we got different sized grenades. Oh, dude, that's a real cusser.
Well, that one really cracked the rock.
Yeah. So. Sharpers like have metal bits.
Shrapnel in them.
Yeah, messed up. But very cool.
At some point, I think we knew, the names are not obtuse,
right.
But still hearing them be like, well, that one cracked the rock, so crackers.
We just literally just came up the first thing that came to our minds. That's what they're called now. It's really funny.
It's one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, that probably is how that happened. But it's not like the Moranth were like, here are the cussers.
Right. And also it's rad that these two guys like invented an entire division of the military by themselves. Pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so they're gonna go to this farmstead, and Bottle is like, there's two people inside, I can sense it. And he's like, oh, that's weird. I have this strange image in my head of a crowd of people pointing. And what is that mocker? Is somebody putting that image in my head? And he's like, Gessler, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah.
And Gessler's like, I don't know. I was thinking about my friend Culp and how weird that was when we passed through the fire on the boat. And he's like, okay, it's not you. It's just like, hey, what are you thinking right now? Like, are you putting images in my brain? I thought that was a really funny moment where he's just like, somebody putting images in my brain. You. It's like the moment again. Everything is Ghostbusters, but what did you clear your heads? What are you thinking about right now? It's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Anyway, and then Uru Hella is like, I'm just gonna get some water in my canteen. I'm gonna throw water on Gessler. This is all fun and games. Ah ha ha. And then Bottle's like, hang on a second. Not people. Not people in there.
Well,
they smell us,
and
and they're moving fast.
In that moment, I forget. I think they were talking to Fiddler, right? This is Fiddler's group.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Go up there and ask for a cup of water. Say you're thirsty." And they're like, "But I'm not thirsty."
That's so funny.
Like, and somebody says something like, "The things you learn about people," and it's like, okay, she just really doesn't want to lie. She's like, "I could say that I have to fill up my water skin," and they're like, "Great, do that." And she's like, "I have to empty it first,
but I don't have to fill up my water skin. Just pour it out." Oh, okay, then I don't have to lie. It's like, you're gonna murder everyone that runs out of there, but you don't want to lie to them. Yeah, very funny scene. I'm glad you brought that up. I loved that. But then, of course,
the tables turn.
It's even crazier than that, because we got a couple of demon princes, and Uru like walks up to the door like, "Hey, can I have some?" And, axe to the shoulder. I love that he describes it as the arm leapt free. I was like, "Oh, that's a verb,
brutal.
Baby." Yeah,
yeah.
And she just gets hacked,
just instantly brutalized, basically instantly dead. The two Kenrila demons are there.
Yeah,
which, watching the scene, you're like, "Oh my gosh!" Like somebody Hanan Mosag or somebody summoned them, planted them. Yeah. Whatever the situation is, now you're fighting these guys, and they fight them a little, and then mostly try and piece out of there.
Yeah, I mean, they're throwing bombs at them, blowing up the thing, like collapsing buildings on them, blowing up half of one of them's face, but they don't stop. They don't stop. They're demons.
And so they're legging it, trying to blow them up, basically on their way out the door. Somebody's doing their like vocal misleading to be like, "We're going to south, definitely south," and some of them are like, "We are," and they're like, "No, we're not, get over here."
Shut up, idiot.
It's a misdirect. So they all run away, and then at that moment, because of all the noise, we have some other Lethari Edir group patrol coming to check it out. But between those two moments, we cut to the demons, who are just actually the farmers. They're not planted there. Yeah. They're just there trying to have a peaceful life.
I mean, this is what I love about Malazan, right? Is that every single thing that you had taken as an assumption is subverted, right? And your expectations are always subverted. And it's just awesome. They're just like two peaceful farmers. They're like, these soldiers show up. What are you gonna do? Like, get out of here. And then they're like, "Hey man, what should we?" They ran off. Yeah, and you have half a face. He's like, "It'll grow back." Should we chase them, or what do you think? It's like, should we go get them? Because they blew up the farm mostly.
It took us so long to build this. Ugh. Like, I thought you said, like that they're bickering with each other. Like, I thought you said that it would be peaceful here. Like, it would be peaceful. Everybody else left because we're demons. Obviously, it has been peaceful. Don't tell me it hasn't.
This ongoing, subplot of the fact that demons just want to be chill and live demon lives, and they keep getting plucked out of their realm and forced to be here and fight. And it's like, they're just regular dudes.
They're just innocent men.
So
just normal men.
Yeah. Man. But then the drum blows up.
The drum being the cusser line.
Yep. Cuddle's like, "Yeah, I finally got to see a drum. I could die happy." And then basically everybody hears the bomb go off, which is really funny. We cut over to this new character, Tom Tissy, who's, they heard a bunch of, he and Fist Kenebs heard a bunch of detonations. And they're trying to, Keneb's trying to figure out what the plan here is. And, basically they're like, "Hey, we got to cut off their supply routes. We got to stick to Malazan rules. This is what Kellenved did, and Dassam Ultor, and all, Caladan Brood, and Dujek, and everybody. This is what we do. We got to stick to it."
Well, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and then the end of that scene is Tom Tissy going, "Hey man, we all get it. It's really hard to be you." And Kenneth's like, "Shut up. It's not hard to be me. You shut up."
You think they were
Don't
buds?
give me any sympathy. And then-
We are not friends, and that's in order.
yeah.
Thank you.
And he leaves. And he's like, that was really nice of him to say.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. Can't show him any weakness, but it was really nice of him to, just say that.
I love that. And the thing I like about him sort of listing all those people as well is he's talking about like, it's also crazy that we're here and crazy that we're doing this. And
Yeah.
that despite that this is Malazan tactic, it is Malazan tactic that has only been successfully used by the greats, the greatest military minds in history.
Right. And is
And they're
Tavor
basically
that?
they're banking on, they're all just sort of like doing it because, they're soldiers and it's structure and they don't really have a choice because Malaz, everyone wants to kill them. But it's banking on Tavor being one of the greatest in history for it to be successful, truly.
Which, is this ongoing theme of, do we trust her? Is she really all that?
Mhm.
Does she earn the trust of the rank and file?
Yeah.
Though, so then the next scene, we pop back over to Hedge, who's still hanging out with Emroth, and they're walking through. There was a bunch of ice. They saw the throne of ice, but now things are nicer. There's trees. There's grass. It's kind of lovely here. And they're like, that's kind of weird that we were so close to the throne of ice, and yet, it's
all this
temperate.
stuff's here.
Yeah.
But they both seem to immediately recognize it.
Yes.
As the Talon Warren. I mean,
That's
I assume Emroth can feel that, is drawn to it, sense it in some way.
Yes. And Emroth kind of has a not so veiled threat, which is like, if you know what, if you weren't a ghost, I would kill you. He's like, I'm a ghost though, can't do it. And she's like, well, how do you even affect anything? And he's like, force of will. I can will myself to do cool stuff. And it's because the bridge burners sort of got half ascended by that Tano Spirit Walker song, which he kind of describes as an inverse of the Talon ritual, which I thought was kind of interesting. And
it comments that Emroth is like a body without a soul, and he's a soul without a body.
Yes. And then we got a sort of, I thought, a pretty surprising turn where, he sort of relates to her. I mean, Hedge is kind of sympathizing with her plight and her situation, and just the plight of the Talanomas in general. And they identify this place that they've come to as the refugium, a refuge, basically. These pockets of verdant land that exist inside the ice, where the Amos and their beasts would kind of hole up as the ice was expanding around them. And he's like, wait a second. I think Emroth is doing some nefarious stuff.
Yeah, because there was, in this conversation that they had, there's something that was in my brain a second ago and then it left. In this conversation that they had, I think it was when he was talking about how he's been like half ascended and he can kind of like manifest things. But then there's also these spaces that have been protected, but also possibly in the same way that he's like, check it out, I made a bomb. Is it real? Feels pretty real. It's heavy. That there are probably Talon who have manifest this space and have been able to bring things to life through sort of thinking it, feeling it. And especially if they were, and I could be getting this wrong, obviously, say that about any sentence in the book. If there were Talon who were like maybe not in the ritual, especially existing here, because this is like a Warren space, they could be doing the same kind of thing and just basically, or he said something about how there are not Talon that weren't even part of the ritual, but because this is this Warren space that is connected with them, some Talanomas get blown into a bunch of bits, but some that he calls out get put into vistas so that they can just look out and imagine the world that they could have been enjoying, which we know specifically did happen because we saw Karsa put one of those skulls there. Karsa.
Yeah.
And this is what they're imagining. They're manifesting it somehow through their strong desires. And
It's crazy that
this was connected to that somehow, but I'm not putting the pieces together perfectly.
the notion of, some people just get buried and they're for eternity, they just stare at the blackness of underground dirt.
Yes.
And then
Brutal.
other people like get a sweet, sick view. Like it's
Yeah.
it's real
Hit or miss.
Two sides of a very different coin. That's a real win-lose situation. But then he has this moment where he's like, got a bomb. Sorry. Time for you to blow it up. And
then he blows her up.
And then feels really sad about it because she was thousands of years. She's been trying to return to a corporeal state and was like,
I'm free
from it. She's like there.
It wasn't even feet from it. He blew her up basically right when she crossed the threshold because a bunch of meat splashed everywhere. And so she had become corporeal again and he instantaneously exploded her.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I definitely missed something. I think it's just like the sense that because she is this unchained one, unbound one, that she bad, she gonna do something bad, so blow her up. But also I was like, but why?
It felt very cruel, but also a turn I did not see coming, because he has this sympathy for her, but it seemed like he put it together that she was sort of recruiting Talana Moss for the crippled god.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had to put a stop to that.
I know all of their interactions, pretty much every interaction where somebody's chatting with a Talana Moss of any variety is so chill that it's like none of them really seem particularly sinister,
right.
Except for the ones who were kind of haunting Karsa, who felt a little bit more prickly. So we know where they're out there. And because I think Emroth more in title of Unbound, I have those associations with being a baddie.
Yeah.
With it rather than any direct like, oh, this is the person who did blah.
But she also earlier was like, I would kill you in a heartbeat, Hedge, if I could, but I just don't know how to kill a ghost.
But I could picture like a bunch of people in the book saying that. So I wasn't like particularly put off by it.
Right. Pretty big moment, though. I thought he was just like, boom, you dead. And then we cut over to Onrak, who they're like nearby and everybody hears that bomb go off, which is funny. But Onrak is they're dealing with these Mlava cubs that they have in a sack. Yeah. These kittens. And Troll's just like, man, I love this guy. I love this guy so much, more than even my own brothers. I love this guy.
I love this guy so much. And man, he just sure is feeling a lot of good feels these days.
Yeah.
To the point where I'm tired.
Yeah. It's exhausting watching him be so happy.
Feel joy.
Yeah. I'm like, I relate to that, Troll. I relate to that. Just calm it down on the joy. And then we head over into Quick Ben's POV in the same grouping. And he's like, it's funny because he says basically the opposite, where he's like, boy, that Onrak sure isn't smiling as much as he used to. He's kind of getting over his initial
happiness,
buoyant joy. Yeah. And he tries to cheer him up. He says, hey, Onrak, you're too hard on yourself. He literally says, don't be so hard on yourself. You can't be happy all the time.
Yeah, because Onrak, I guess, is feeling like some amount of, he's feeling trepidation or anxiousness because he's sensing something that's not right.
Yeah.
And that's like making him feel guilty because he's like, I should feel happy because of my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And Onrak is like, well, Quickpen's like, hey, have you been making paint? He's like, guilty as charged.
Ooh, time to do some secret artwork.
He's like, I love painting so much, but it really got me into trouble. And of course, we know the whole backstory with the whirlwind goddess was his wife when he painted a different lady, got so pissed that she became the whirlwind goddess. And then they have this lovely moment where it's like, let's all tell our secrets.
I know. They're like, and then we'll play spin the bottle.
And then you can do my hair and I'll give you a facial.
I would love them to get to like wherever they're gonna paint, and he's like, she's still hotter.
Yeah. Onrak is like, I will tell you about this lady I loved and the tragedy of the Talana Moss. And Troll's like, oh, I'll tell you about this crazy ape person that raped me.
I know.
Yeah. And Cookspan's like, oh, all right. I'll tell you about how I got 12 souls. It's like sick story time around the campfire.
Yeah,
and then a bomb goes off in the distance and like, bomb.
I also love that Troll is like, right before that, he's like, I cannot tell them about what happened. And then they sit down and he's like, I got the craziest thing happened.
Yeah. He's like, it's very consistent though, where it's like, oh, there's one thing I definitely cannot tell. Hey guys, guess what? You know, it really feels very authentic to the human experience of like, no, there's no way I can tell. Oh, there's an opening for me to tell it? Okay, here we go.
That's me. If I have a surprise planned, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be so good. Let me tell you about what I'm going to do later.
Yeah. I cannot tell you what your Christmas present is going to. Wait, do you want to know though? Do you want to know?
Unless you want to know, and then I'll tell you right now.
All right. So back to Fiddler. And Bottle is just like, I'm gonna sleep. And Korab and Cuddle are carrying Bottle, just trying to get that poor guy some rest.
And he passes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they have him on like a stretcher.
Yeah, that's right. And they're kind of taking inventory of how many bombs they have left. Not a lot. And then we cut over to Corporal Tar, who's like, man, I love being called Tar. So rad. Remember when Braventooth called me Tar because he's like, stick your feet in tar and don't move. He's like, yeah, I've been doing that. I'm that guy. I'm that guy. I put up my shield. I protect you. Total tank.
Mm-hmm.
Tank main.
I loved. I think this is the Korab section right after this.
I think so.
I don't remember if they were back to back, but Tar, I like this section. Well, it's kind of sad, but he's like, I would put my feet in the ground, and I know that they like say that the like mages should go first so that they can like feel things out. But like, this is my job. I'm the front line, baby, and I'm gonna be on the front line, and I'm never moving. And I would defend everybody except maybe Korab, because that dude was the enemy till recently.
Yeah,
and like basically. He's like, even though he's done a lot of cool things, I didn't forget that he was standing at Leoman's side when we went through Icatan. Yeah. Period.
Well, and also, what's up with that jerk where he's always trying to run ahead and like get in front of everybody, and I'm trying to get through the door, and he's like pushing past me. Mm-hmm. And then we cut over to Korab. He's like, I just want to help. I just want to get out there and like help be first.
And doesn't he specifically look at Tar and be like, that's the kind of man? Because Tar's always trying to run ahead. So they like have the same intent. And
they both are just completely misinterpreting it from the other guy, which is so great.
And Korab being like, also identifying Tar's like weak point. He's like, and there's some interesting things that feel like possibly foreshadowy to me, or just, I don't know if it's just their relationship of like Korab being like, Tar, my kind of man. And Tar being like, this guy.
It's so rad. Korab's like, oh, he doesn't protect his flank like we did in the way I was taught. So I'll be there and help out. And Tar's like, oh, I hate that guy just always being there to help out. It's just really funny.
And then Korab is also like, I know that I was told that I got to guard Bottle because he's the most important. Other people got it. People got it. And I'm like,
I'm Tar's like boy.
Something.
It's such a lovely benefit of the way Erikson has structured these novels with the multiple POVs, where you get, these misunderstandings that you, the reader, get to go, oh, if only he knew.
If only they talked.
If only they would relate to each other.
Yeah.
But then, between those two scenes, actually, we have Smiles, who is like, man, Korik, he's so hot because he murders people. I love watching him murder. Oh, so hot.
And then don't they like hear bombs go off? And she's like, "Oh yeah, Korik, get him.
Go. Yeah.
Why don't you go see what's over there?"
She's like, I'm just gonna sit here and watch you kill people. So hot. Yeah. And then we head over to a real change of pace after we've been with Malazan, back and forth, a lot of Malazan stuff in this chapter. We head over to Shirk Alal, who is, I love this scene because it's not about Shirk, but it's from her POV, and she just gets to like judge everybody in the corner. Meanwhile, all of her little 11 herbs and spices that are there to make her smell good are like past their expiration date. And she's just starting to stink, and everybody's just commenting on how bad she smells now.
And she's like, "Oh, I should do this. Oh, and I wish I could have a drink, but it'll leak out everywhere." And then I love that this is just like cut to the room of hotties.
Yeah, she's like, man, that adjunct Tavor, she could be so hot if she wanted to.
If she could be so pretty if she smiled. I'm totally. Like, toxic Shirk. That's toxic.
Toxic Shirk.
And then, but
like,
doesn't
you know what you could use? A little blush. A little. What about a little mascara? Diamond on your forehead?
Because you're worth it.
You are.
But then isn't she like appraising Lestara as like
she's like
barbarian
hottie, is legit hot. She does know how to work it. And then also Masan Galan. Yeah, she's just like checking out all the ladies in the room. It's very funny.
I picture it kind of like it doesn't feel like competitive, which I like about it, that she's not like, but my brain is sort of picturing her as like that, like dude, like trying to buff his muscles a little, being like trying to fit in with the other buff dudes. It's like she's that, but she's like the dead girl being like, I'm not gonna breathe out too hard because there's a lot of hotties here. And they'll know I'm so stinky.
She's at the party and like, oh, look at Brittany. And then she's like,
yeah. Not to kiss her, just to stand near her because she's a hottie too. Shirk's also a babe, just a dead babe.
That's right. And meanwhile, there's actually some pretty important conversation going on.
Not to be distracted from the like, enlightening context.
Tavor's like, hey Shirk, what's the deal with the Emperor? And she's like, not good, not good. The Empire is wobbly. She calls it wobbly. And she tells her about Hanan Mosag and that the Letheri are basically a lost colony of the First Empire, and that they're not good at even ruling the Letheri. The Letheri are kind of ruling themselves. Mm-hmm. And then boom, the door busts open, and Jan Tovis runs in,
and her brother or whatever his name is,
Derrig. Yep.
Yeah.
And she's like, guess what? I'm the queen of the shake, and I don't need I choose my own king. I don't like that guy. I don't like Sheikh Brulig.
He's
I'm
like,
not marrying him.
Peanuts.
He's a real jerkwad.
Yeah.
I'm not marrying that guy.
Mm-hmm. And then she's like, all right, I get to choose my own king. Now kill him.
Yeah.
Like instantaneously, just like, get rid of that guy.
Yeah. Like murder Sheikh. I don't want to marry him, nor do I want him to breathe. And then Dead smells like, hey. I got some insight into all this.
Between naps.
Yeah, he just like wakes up.
He's like,
oh, BT dubs.
There could change Molly.
Yeah. Or they like the shore that they're constantly looking at is the island of Kachin Shamale origins, like where baby dinosaur stabbers get born, right?
Mm-hmm.
And He's also like, I know what your name means. I know what your name means. I know what your name means.
But I like that he's like, did you know that your name meant this? So interesting, right?
She's like,
Crazy.
yes. Yeah. But clearly Jan Tovis is like, what? And then Shake's like, oh, hey, let's not murder me. Or Shake Brolig, I should say, is like, let's not murder me. I would like you to protect me. How about that?
He's like, I know I was like super grimy this whole time, but Malazans, I am seeking asylum.
Yeah.
Thank you. I could be like so helpful, probably.
And Tavor's like, well, we are looking for a guide to guide the invasion fleet. She's like, basically the ice is melting and we're out of here. We're not staying much longer because the ice is all melting. But that kind of it leaves on that scene ends. I feel like on a kind of not a cliffhanger per se, but unresolved to my mind.
I think there is. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to mute between the bells. The
chimes for whom the bell tolls over here. Yeah.
Yes. So my impression of the scene was, and I could be in error. This area that they're at, this old prison, not a prison, whatever it is, run by Sheikh Brulig.
Yeah.
What is quote unquote the shore is the island, because they're on an island right now.
Right.
That was the space that's like, this is where all the Kachin Shamali babies were born. And the Sheikh now are descendants of, or are just the most human versions of Kachin Shamali. So they are Kachin Shamali, period.
Oh.
Was my understanding.
I feel like they're like halvesies. They're dragonborn.
They're ones that weren't
basically
called. They were ones that were not called. The matrons didn't call dibs on them, and then there were the ones that were. I would say they were more like bred for their traits, the way that people do with like koi fish. Is they were like, you look less like a freaky lizard, and so you won't die immediately. Because you have the more human traits that let us sort of like blend in with society. Right. I do
that's
think
why
that
I was
they've
interpreting
maybe evolved enough as being like a different subsection of it. But my impression was at least they are descendants of or great relatives of the close enough relatives of the Kachin Shamali that they could probably be considered as such. Twilight, Jan Tovis was like, he said something like, Yaneth means twilight, and Antovis means protector,
dark,
warrior,
night,
dark, and then
Yadanis means wit, watch,
and then he goes, Derek, who knows what that means? And I'm like, it's got to be shore or something or whatever it is. But he goes, who knows? So it feels like her being like queen, and I guess him being prince or something. There's some history that seems like it is. It felt to me like they were I'll say descendants, or maybe evolutions of Kachin Shamali people.
Yeah. I kind of got like a half orc, or the equivalent of that, where they're sort of half breeds of Kachin Shamali and human.
But the thing I think was interesting about it as well is that they were like, people kicked us out of our island, and the Malazans coming here looking to liberate the Letheri and realizing that is not who wants to be liberated.
Right.
My soft prediction is that, they are going to go forth into the capital, and they will actually be liberating the Kachin Shamali, who, if they then work with Red Mask, who has two like fully lizard folk with him, we could be seeing a convergence of their
interesting
allyship.
I like that. That would be cool. I did not put that together. Anyway, that's the end of chapter 17. Chapter 18.
That's the end of chapter 17. Sorry, there's so much that happened in that chapter.
So much in chapter 17. Chapter 18, complete change of pace. We head over to Triban Gnol, and we have this lovely. I almost pulled this entire thing as it was just too long, but he's like thinking about his hands and how his mom used to compliment his hands and what he uses those hands, and how he had hands that were meant for artistry or something beautiful, and he never achieved that goal or that ideal, and so he's sort of this waste, this disappointment, and I thought all that metaphor was so beautiful, and then how it carries through and what he does with his hands, and at the end he looks at his hands again, and he's just he's a monster, right? He's a complete monster.
Yeah, and the piece
But-
where like like his stepdad or whatever, his hands were so beautiful, and he assumed that I got that he was jealous of him and broke all his fingers. So now his hands are a mess, and so he's like, my hands look monstrous, and they're only good for monstrous deeds.
Yeah, and his dad, his real dad, is the errant, right? Because his mom had a fling with Turudal
And so did he.
Yeah, creepy. But the errant, what are you gonna do? I don't know.
What a
the errant's
freak.
freaky, Yeah. But I love how his stepdad, completely mistreated him and hated him because his hands were real workmen's hands. And I just, all of that stuff was just so lovely. And we always, always, always get, even the worst characters, some sort of sympathetic understanding
moment.
It's just so good. Such good writing.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so he walks into the throne room where Rulad and Hanan Mosag are, and he's continues to do his sort of smarmy manipulation of Rulad and undermining Hanan Mosag, and he's like, "Hey, so there's a bunch of champions. A lot of people saying the emperor is scared to fight them," and Rulad's like, "Whoa, huh? What?"
A lot of people in the street going, "Buck, buck."
yeah. No one calls me chicken. And he's like, "Well, here's what we'll do. We'll have you fight that Segula lady with the mask. No problem. Zip, zip, rip to shreds. Then you're gonna fight this giant man who everyone else is scared of and refuses to fight." And he's like, "Really? I am?" He's like, "Oh yeah. We're gonna we'll book in a couple of extra days because he's probably gonna kill you like 7-8 times." And Rulad's like, "That sounds terrible. I don't want to do that." And he's like, "Yeah. And he's like, "But that's not the last one." He's like, "No." He's like, "The last one is this other guy. We haven't seen him fight, but we're putting him last." It's like, "Why are you putting him last?" It's like, "Well, because some people are calling him a god."
He's like, "Oh my god, the craziest coincidence. That guy who's always been talking about his god? It's him. It's his
Rulad's
god.
Like, "You're gonna fight a god?"
I also just love that it does feel like he pulls out the clipboard and he's like, "All right, your schedule for today is and just reviewing the schedule.
These guys are gonna murder you 7-8 times. I do this because I always imagine Rulad scraping his sword hand on the floor every time he talks, like scrape, scrape.
I felt like that scene in particular, and the times that he kind of throws his arms up and then smashes the sword tip on the ground, and just bits are flying everywhere. I'm like, I felt like my hand was aching just thinking about having to hold on to a sword for eternity. I know it's magically strapped there, but my brain said that is exhausting.
It's such a cool detail.
Yeah.
It feels like another aspect of his torment, that he the source of his power is such a burden also, and obviously every part of him is a burden. But it's
but I also feel like you forget that thing's glued to him all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. So then Triban goes back to his office and finds Karos Invictad there, who's pissed, wants to know where Bruthan Trana is. And he's slamming his scepter on the thing. And Triban just stands up and towers over him. And he's like, "I don't know where he is. Stop yelling at me."
They have a little baby, a little whine off. They're both "Well, you're being mean, and also you're being stupid at your job," and then being "And I have this piece of information that you don't." And it's "Well, I have this piece of information you don't." And it feels like they're both just being so petulant this whole scene.
Yeah, completely. And Karos is like, "My plan is working, and so I'm gonna rule everything. And also, do you want to do it with me? Because there's room for you in my plan.
I'll leave a space. You can have the throne." "No, I don't want the throne." "Oh, that's so funny."
No, I don't want it. He's like, "Here." It's so funny. They're fighting each other, and he's like, "And I'm gonna win, and you can be my partner if you want to." And Triban's like, yeah, I can be your partner. You, the guy who like can't solve the puzzle. And he's like, who told you about my puzzle?
I feel normal about the puzzle.
I will solve it. I just haven't had time. I've been really busy. There's a lot of stuff on my plate right now. I haven't had puzzle time.
Think.
I'll finish it.
I want the puzzle to think that I don't know how to finish it, so that when I finish it, the puzzle will feel so bad.
It's so funny. I mean, there's scenes in between, but I love that he like stomps out of that room and runs over to Gnol Yathanar and is like, "Did you tell him about my puzzle? That I couldn't finish the puzzle?"
Just clocks him. I like so that picturing him like leaving that room and then sprinting there, like winding up the whole time, and then just busting into wherever Gnol Yathanar is and just finishing the swing.
I told you I was going to finish that puzzle.
Don't tell anybody my business.
But in between that, we check in with the errant.
But also, did Gnol Yathanar tell him about the puzzle?
Well, I don't think so. No,
I don't think so.
Which is an interesting mystery. Like, how did he get that information? But yeah, because in that scene, Gnol's like, I didn't though. He's like, don't lie to me. And he's like,
he goes, what do I do?
I did then, I guess. I don't. I mean, I didn't, but okay. I don't want to piss you off more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very funny.
What a whelp.
But we have the scene in between with the errant, who is also like just constantly like in the room, like standing next to the.
I know the reveal of like, oh yeah, he's just always there.
He's always there. Just standing next to the tapestries, just like nobody notices me, but just silently judging everyone. And he's like, what do I do? Do I like have sex with Triban again? No, that didn't really work last time. He just kind of gets blubbery and whiny and it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
What should I do? And then.
But does that mean like Triban is like, I don't know how godhood fully works, or if you can like pass down godhood through genetics, but like, does he have secret power? Like, is he genetically part god? I don't know how that works at all.
I had that same thought. I was like, oh, that seems pretty important if you were
and crappy
half god. But he's like trying to figure out the errant is like trying to work it through, and it's like, what is Rulad knows bad stuff's going to happen. Either the Malazans come and kill him, or Ikariam kills him, or maybe Triban like betrays him in some way. I don't know what's going on. I got to figure this out. And he walks down into the little dungeon that Featherwitch has built as a home for herself. She's really done some lovely renovations on the place, you know.
Just some interior decorating.
Yeah, she added a very tasteful walking path through the muck.
A very, very classy shrine.
That's right.
You like walk in and you're like, oh yeah, that's an errant shrine, all right.
Well, it's a shrine to
her god.
It's a shrine to the errant. You're right. It's a shrine to the errant. But isn't this the same shrine that he uses to trap Mail?
No, it's not.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay.
Yeah, so he like looks at all this business, and then I got the sense that he's like, "Oh, what am I to do?" And then he's like, "I know." And then he talks about the city and how people don't realize that there's buildings on buildings and what those things mean and what they used to be, and how this city used to have like this channel that went all the way around it, like an aqueduct. That was pure good water. And it also was sort of like a sign of like Mael's power of having encircled the city. And sure enough, he like goes down into one of those channels where that water used to be and finds a chamber that he's like, oh yeah, this used to be like a church to Mael, a shrine to Mael. That Mael ignores all his followers. So he hears them, but just disregards them. And so he goes to the shrine, and it's been collapsed in. It's in like such extreme disrepair that he finds the altars not even at altar height. It's been like smashed into the ground.
Right. And
he's like, perfect.
Yeah.
And then begins channeling a ritual there.
Yes. And I wasn't sure what that was, but I love how Featherwitch is like, I got some cool plans. You're my god. And he's like, I don't want to be your god. He's like, I'm gonna like go to Udanos in his dreams and like I'll enslave him and he'll be part of our team. And he's like, ugh, don't. You're doing too much. Too much.
Yeah,
too much.
you're stretched too thin.
Yeah.
You gotta chill.
Yeah. So then, yes, we have going back to this is the Garen Eberict estate where the Errant does all the stuff you just mentioned.
Right. Yes.
And start weaving that ritual. So then the next scene is my favorite scene of this week. One of my favorite scenes of this entire novel. Advocate Sleem, who's a new character.
Sleem. I love Sleem. I have so many quotes.
Dude. Oh, me too. So first of all, the fact that Erikson makes a lawyer who literally has a reptile face, literally has a snake, is like part snake, and he's like the snakiest, smarmiest lawyer.
He has like a skin condition that makes him look pretty reptilian that he like leans into to the point where he's like made his mannerisms be like snaky, and he tries to talk all sibilant, except for when he gets mad, he's like, shut up. Shut up.
I mean, shut up. It's so great. And this entire scene, I mean, I have a big section that is part of my favorite thing, but this entire scene is so delightful and wacky and funny and smart, and the back and forth. I mean, my whole section of the like, well, we'll get to it. It's so wonderful.
Good. The scene where he said like, and so what's the context of the scene is basically this guy calling out Bug for being a bad businessman, which we all know is, Bug's construction, Bug's whatever, that's been a part of the grand scheme. Yeah. And they have loans on loans on loans. And this lawyer has been like helping facilitate the loans that they have to pay for the loans. And he's frustrated because he's like, where's my payment? And he's like, wouldn't you like to know? Kind of like sassing
how much
him.
money have you got on you? He's like, nothing.
These 2 coins.
He's like, maybe I'll take out another loan to pay you. And he's like, that's not how this works.
And I just love that he gets so much like more and more worked up to the point, and Bug the whole time is so aloof and silly in the way that he is. Like more, I would say aloof than he is with Tehal, but like just silly. And then Sleem is like, I'll see you at your drowning. And the fact that he kind of like breaks in that moment, he goes, ha! Well, that would be fun.
Yeah, he's like hilarious. You think you can drown the god of water?
Great. Let's go.
It's really great. Yeah. He's like, aren't you going to defend me? And he's like, no. I'll be the first one to ask for your drowning.
Yeah.
So great. It's so great.
And like the whole thing is really just teeing up that the plan that Tehal and Bug have been concocting and working on for however long is really coming to a head. Because at the end, Sleem leaves disappointed, and Bug also leaves his office for the last time.
Right. And knows it. And this plan is just going to completely collapse the economy. And part of that is the fact that he's got loans and loans and loans and loans and loans, and there's no actual there, and it's all going to come crumbling down, which is great. Then we head over to Tehal, who's mad because Ublala Pung has been eating his chickens. This is another delightful scene where he and Janath have a lovely tete-a-tete that's sort of flirty and sort of fun. And Ublala continues to be a complete doofus.
He's like, you ate another one of my chickens. And he's like, did you even pluck it first? And then they talk about this overstuffed pillow, and he plucked 2 chickens. He ate one, and the other one, well, now he plucked it, and it was going to be cold, so he shoved it in the pillow where all the feathers from the other chickens are.
I wanted to keep it warm. So funny. And the pillow is like moving around the room. It's very funny. But then Tehal and Janath like have this debate about what he basically lays out his plan of crashing the economy. And she's like, isn't that going to hurt all the people that you're trying to help? And he's like, well, guess what? Can't make an omelet. You know what I'm saying? Got to break some eggs up in here.
Yeah. But she's like, there's going to be bloodshed. Like, don't you realize this? And in the end, doesn't he sort of also come around to being like, I'm going to be taking a lot of the fall, like the bloodshed. It should be people
Right.
coming for me. And so it's not that he hasn't thought about that. It is, you got to break a few eggs, but he is also trying to be as many of those eggs as he can be.
And I love how he's like, by the way, you should leave. Like, stuff's going to go. Oh, they're here.
Yeah.
You know, it was real intense because it like happens out of nowhere. And I was like, oh no. And I love how you see them walk through the door and then it cuts right over to Tanal Yathvanar's POV.
Mm-hmm.
And he like, you see Tehal like, hey, that's weird how that guy is looking at Janath with shock.
Mm-hmm.
And then you cut right over to Tanal Yathvanar and he's like, Janath is here.
Yeah. I also loved, we sort of glossed over in the scene where Tanal Yathvanar is like in Trubs and he like runs away trying to put his face back together.
Yeah.
It was Karos and there's so many T names that I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah.
The scene where Karos and the other guy, Triban and Gnol, are yelling at each other. And they're like, here's where my glory is going to be. Here's where my glory is going to be. And then he goes and scepters Tanal in the face. And then Tanal's like, my glory is going to be in that we know who the person is who's messing everything up. And I'm going to be the guy who arrests him. And everybody's going to know that. And so it's like you get these different powers all talking about where their glory is going to be as they, you know, try and fix this situation. And everybody just talking about this sort of this selfish interest in this power. And then you get Tanal busting in this door being like, we're here to arrest the people. Oh my gosh, Janath is here. And also where's your servant?
Well, I got I'm glad you brought that up because through that whole section, I was like, does he really know who's responsible? I kept wondering, like, is he on to Tehal or does he have the wrong, have they sufficiently, you know, cast off the scent to know? And so then when he busts through and he's like, where's your manservant? I was like, oh, they think it's Bug. I don't know if they think it's Tehal yet, right?
I don't think that they think it's Tehal at all.
Right.
And I think that was a big part of the plan because Bug's a god. So he can
Bug's gonna be
do whatever.
Fine, except that he's not going to be fine because of the errant, which we're going to get to. Yeah. So I love how this all comes crumbling down sort of in an instant. But there's also that moment where Tanal is like, you, and she's like, wait, do we know each other? And he's
know.
Like, because remember Bug removed her memory of it.
Because it was too horrible.
Yeah, but it's such an awesome moment. He's like, wait, why did she say that? Of course she remembers me. I tortured the living hell out of her. But it's such a cool, like, little, like, blink and you miss it moment that I think is probably going to have bigger ramifications.
Yeah. And I think very important for, like, how she's been so normal and so sane. I feel like it happened so quickly that she was sort of recovered and then recovered with Bug's help. That I think it would be easy to miss that in general.
Yeah. It's such a cool thing. She's like, who, what, Hugh? And she's like, wait. She's like, you don't remember me? And then we have this a lovely moment where Tehal is just sitting in his white privilege. You know, it's just like, oh, you want to arrest us? Well, guess what? You can't because she has been pardoned. And so, sorry, you can't arrest. And he's like, you know what? We'll figure all that out, but I am going to arrest you in the meantime.
Because it is in lieu of your manservant who's not here. Well, he comes in and he goes, I don't think he even says that. He goes, a crime is happening. And he's like, fine, and hands him the plucked chicken first.
Sorry, we didn't even think we were going to get the ransom.
Just such a mischievous butthead.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those guys who just thinks he's I'm untouchable. But then we immediately cut to Bug's POV. And Ublala is like trying to bring this dead steer through the door. Can't fit him through the door. It's like
I forgot to like get him out of there. Tehal, like a child, was like, everybody's been saying that they don't think that you can catch us dinner because nobody can. That's why we're eating the literal dirt off the ground. And he's like,
dirt stew.
What do you mean? People think I can't do it. I can so do it. And then that's what gets him out of the house so that he's not there when the arrest happens.
I also liked in that scene where he's like, I made, like dirt stew or whatever it's called, like
Grits.
grit. Yeah. And she's like, wait, that wasn't just a funny title. Like it's literally the grit from the floor. Like that's.
And he's like, what do you think this is, Michelin starred?
So funny. But then, Bug like shows back up and realizes that they're gone. The
Which I
chickens
think
are
he
wandering
knew.
around.
I think
Well, no, but
Bug
he said he was
anticipated
distracted by his worshipers. I feel like if Bug had been there, that would not have gone down. Like, I feel like Bug being gone is the only reason that Tehal and Janath got taken. Because if Bug is like thinking to himself, oh, I was distracted. Also, I guess I'm going to have to go and unleash the full power of an elder god on these mother effers.
Yeah.
Like, that they're about to get it. They're about to get. And I feel like if they had burst in while he was there, they would have just been all dead, and nothing would have happened.
Or he would have been like, I guess, take me away, and then he would have blown up the palace or whatever.
My interpretation of that is that Bug's like, okay, well, I guess I'll just have to go and murder all of them and get my master back. But then decides, okay, well, here's what I'll do. I'll turn into water form and seep through the city to go faster, and then gets sucked into the errant's trap.
Brutal. I was actually like, no. Like I knew as soon as he was down there and he's like, I'm in male zone now. I'm like, I know this just the wrench in their plans. I know that it is. And then it's so brutal because, Male gets sucked into whatever power is in the altar, like summoned by, I assume, like the errant being like, please come talk to me, my lord. Male showing up and then trying to go out of water form to break out of it. But the altar is so crushed and covered with all those rocks that he is just completely weighted down by it, can't breathe. And now he's just staring into the blackness and can't do anything, can't escape.
And you feel like, Tehal is just assuming that Bug's going to come and save the day, and nope, he's trapped.
Yeah.
Super cool. So then we cut over to Roulade just tripping balls and having a real nightmare about
just
all
disassociating in the throne room.
Yeah, just not having a good one.
Tuesday.
Yeah. And we have, all my brothers hate me. My old friend Udnas hates me. Everybody hates me.
My parents, I killed them because I put them down in the thing, and I guess they drowned.
So wait, I immediately thought that was bad intel. I think they may very well be really dead, but I feel like killing them off screen, especially when they were like, the last time we saw them, if my memory recalls, they were like hatching plans down there.
I don't know. I think that you're maybe not wrong and that it could be bad intel, but we also keep hearing about how the ice is melting that is like keeping that spirit trapped. So I think that it's very plausible. I think you're right in that I don't think that they're dead, but I think believe
they faked their own deaths.
I don't know if they did, but I think maybe Featherwitch, because when Aaron went down there, it's like, you got too many people. You got Hanan, you got, and like, etc. I feel like there might be in the etc. of like, if that place really started to flood, I feel like Featherwitch would be like, you work for me now, folks, and I'll unchain you both. Because they really were in chains, like strapped up.
Yeah. Certainly could really be dead. I wouldn't put it past Erikson to like kill them this way, but I also felt like maybe he thinks they're dead and they're not.
There's tons of people that I think that he's been lied to enough in enough different ways about at least how people died, that I think it's very plausible and that they could be like, yeah, they're super dead and they're just missing. And they're like, whatever.
That's another screw to turn on Roulade of like, oh, you're responsible for your parents' death, don't you? Yeah. So I don't know. The TBD, I guess. So then we're back with Troll and Onrak and Quick Ben, and they see Hedge.
Yeah.
Quick Ben's like, buddy, what's up?
Just walks through the river and they just have a moan.
And Troll's like, man, I wish I could be reunited with someone that I love. and Onrak's like, I can tell you love someone.
Ooh, when you say love, I know you mean like love.
and Trell's like, there was this woman. And and I gave her my sword, and I wonder if she still has it. I wonder if she still thinks about me. And I'm like, serendipity. Anyway, that is how chapter 18 ends, and that is how sub-book 3 ends.
Yep.
Yeah. So I thought
Good
these
chapters.
were pretty awesome chapters.
Oh yeah.
Chapter 18, I enjoyed more than chapter 17, just because there's a lot of jumping around in 17, but there's still some awesome stuff. But chapter 18 would just like all the bug goings on.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. So good.
I'm so glad that I did this. So before we get into favorite quotes, there's one thing that I was like, I really wanted to make sure that I talked about that, but I forgot about it. Oh no, I remember. As soon as I read it, it's a dumb point. Never mind. Let's go to favorite quotes. Move on.
All right. Okay. All right.
Well, I'll tell you what I thought I read. I was like, okay, it's I forget whose mind that we're in right now, but somebody comments about Bomb's crew being lounging around on an island right now. And I was like, oh, are they? It was another moment where I was trying to figure out, like, my brain keeps saying that the Malazans are going to find somebody to liberate because the Letheri have oppressed so many people on this island that they are on the in Letherus in general, on this continent, that there's going to be somebody who would rise up with the Malazans to take them down. Mm-hmm. And then when they said they were on the island, I was like, oh, is this like the island where Tehal and Bug have like hid a bunch of people to protect them? But then it's Throat Slitter, which is they're just on that island with the Shake. That's all it is. Right.
Well, it may be the Shake that do what you say, that sort of align with the Malazans. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as you've predicted.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Do you have a quote you want to start with?
My thing is loading, so if you've got one, you should hit it up.
Well, I'm going to do the Sleem scene that I just love.
The Sleem scene?
The Sleem scene. He said, you wear a most odd expression, Sleem said after a moment. Did my inability to understand you leave you confused, Master Bug? Did you truly misunderstand? That is why I sought reiteration. Well, what did you think you heard? The eyes blinked. Have we truly uttered all these words to return to my original query? I invite you to use some more, Sleem, rather than simply repeating yourself. I hate repeating myself. Advocate Sleem, Bug knew, despised discombobulation, although that was in all probability not even a word. Master Bug, as you know, I despise discombobulation. It's just brilliant. I'm sorry to hear that. You should be, since I charge by the word. Both our words or just yours? It is a little late to ask that now, isn't it? I love that so much. So much. He's like, man, if I recall, this guy hates discombobulation. I hate discombobulation. So good.
It's excellent. Ugh. Joyful little breaks. I have so many favorites, and I know some of them are longer. I'm going to never do this one just because I love Fiddler so much. And this is Cuddle witnessing Fiddler starting the drum. Cuddle was as close to pissing himself as he'd ever been. Not at the prospect of dying. He was fine enough with that and had been ever since finding himself in the 14th. But at what he was witnessing here. The last great Malazan Sapper. No one else came close. Imagine shaving cusser shelves with a knife, eggshell thin. Cuddle had watched, unable to make out much from this distance, as Fiddler set to work on the first one, the deadliest one of all, and he had prayed to every god he could think of, to gods he didn't even know the names of, to spirits and ghosts of every sapper, living or dead, each name a benediction to one man's brilliance, praying that the one man he truly worshipped wouldn't what? Let me down? How pathetic. He knew that. He kept telling himself that in between the breathed out beseechings, as if he'd have time to rule, as if he'd have time to rue the failing of his faith.
So good. Just be the guy I want you to be. Please, 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 please. Just be
Please.
that guy.
I just want that so bad. And then I know that even me thinking this, there's like me praying to other people versus like trusting that you are that guy. In that moment of me knowing or not knowing if you are, I won't even have to have time to think about that because we'll be exploded.
So good.
Loved it.
So good. This is Tehal and Janath, or Janeth. I love it. Yeah, Janeth. So Janeth says, where's the virtue in then destroying all that wealth, in destroying the very system you used to create it in the first place? Janeth, where is the virtue in any of it? Is possession a virtue? Is a lifetime of working for some rich toad a virtue? Is loyal employment in some merchant house a virtue? Loyal to what? To whom? Oh, have they paid for that loyalty with 100 docks a week like any other commodity? But then, which version is truer? The virtue of self-serving acquisitiveness or the virtue of loyalty to one's employer? Are the merchants at the top of their treasure heaps not ruthless and cutthroat as befits those privileges they have purportedly earned? And if it's good enough for them, why not the same for the lowest worker in their house? Where is the virtue in two sets of rules at odds with each other? And why are those fancy words like moral and ethical the first ones to bleed out from the mouths of those who lost sight of both in their climb to the top? Since when did ethics and morality become weapons of submission?
Beautifully read.
I stumbled over it, but I feel like, again, maybe ahead of his time or right finger on the pulse of his time, Erikson, I think, sums up where we are, I think, generationally. And I think there's an entire generation of young people who have that exact perspective. Like, what am I doing? I'm in this rat race destined to fail. And I'm supposed to have ethics and morals, and I'm supposed to be a good soldier and stay in my lane and do the right thing. And what? There's no payoff at the end. We've had generations of people who do that and then get to live the American dream. And I do that, and I'm held down, and I still can't afford a house, and I'm still under crushing debt and all these things. And Tejal's like speaking that, eloquently summing it up. And it's so beautiful and so right on the mark of what I think we're living through right now as a culture.
I cannot agree more. And I like that this is like this culmination of we've seen silly Tehal, and we know that he's smart, and we know he's doing things, but seeing the little break in that sort of like charismatic veneer, not that this is it's a different type of charisma.
Yeah.
You see the frustration that he's living with, and you see like the sacrifice he makes of like literally eating dirt and whatever it is to get to this point because of all this. It's like, the anger and frustration that his siblings sort of wore more on their chest or drove them to do other things. Hull being like this traitor, and Briss, trying to stand up for the things that he believed in, which is like the crown or the throne or whatever.
Right. Loyalty.
You see that same kind of intensity and dedication that his brothers have shown, that he seemed like, I'm a goofy guy who lives on a rooftop, is actually just like what he's been working for his whole life.
Totally.
My last favorite quote is from a section just right before that one, but also Tehal talking with Janeth. So are you telling me that all of this is an exercise in power? An exercise culminating in a lesson no one could not recognize for what it is, a metaphor made real? But Janeth, when I spoke of power destroying itself, I was not speaking in terms of metaphor. I meant it literally. So, how many generations of indebted need to suffer? Even as the civilized trappings multiply and abound on all sides, with an ever-increasing proportion of those material follies out of their financial reach. How many before we all collectively stop and say, aye, that's enough. No more suffering, please. No more hunger, no more war, no more inequity. Well, as far as I can see, there are never enough generations. We just scrabble on, devouring all within reach, including our own kind, as if it was nothing more than the undeniable expression of some natural law, and as such subject to no moral context, no ethical constraint, despite the ubiquitous and disingenuous blathering over invocation of those two grand notions. Too much emotion in your speechifying Tehol Bericht. Marks deducted.
So good. So good. All right, I have one. I know we're already long, but I just love the language of this. This is the epigraph for chapter 18. And I read it like 3 times myself, and I just want to read it out loud because it's a joy to speak these words. The view thus accorded was a vista to answer my last day in the mortal world. The march down of hewn stones, menhirs, and regoliths showed in these unrelieved shadows the array of stolid faces, the underworld grimaces and hisses, bared teeth to threaten, the infinite rows of rooted gods and spirits stretching down the slope, across hill after hill, all the way, yes, to the limitless beyond sight, beyond the mirror of these misshapen, squinting eyes. And in these stalwart belligerents, who each in their day of eminence reached out clawed, grasping hands, the crimson touch of faith in all its demands on our time, our lives, our loves, and our fears, were naught but mystery now, all recognition forgotten, abandoned to the crawl of remorseless change. Did their lost voices ride this forlorn wind? Did I tremble to the echo of blood beseechings, the tearing of young virgin flesh, and the wonder of an exposed heart, the bemused last beats of an insistent outrage? Did I fall to my knees before this ghastly succession of holy tyranny, as might any ignorant cowerer in crowded shadows? The armies of the faithful were gone. They marched away in lifted waves of dust and ash. Priests and priestesses, the succumbers to hope, who conveyed their convictions with the desperate thirst of demons, hoarding fearful souls in their private meanings of wealth. They remained couched in the cracks of their idols, bits of crumbling bone lodged in the stone's weaknesses. That and nothing more. The view thus accorded is the historian's curse. Lessons endless on the pointlessness of games of intellect, emotion, and faith. The only worthwhile historians, I say, are those who conclude their lives in succinct acts of suicide. That is just extraordinary.
Yes. Exquisite.
Just extraordinary writing. I mean, I read that like 3 or 4 times and I couldn't get over how powerful and beautiful and evocative that imagery is and the forcefulness of that sentiment. It's like, this is all nonsense. We're going to like remember this. The only thing that makes sense is to get out of here, is to end it. Incredible. So good. Speaking of ending it, it's time for us to end it. Thank you, folks. Again, likely not going to have an episode next week because of the Christmas holiday, but we will be back to you as soon as we absolutely can. Thanks for sticking with us and understanding our herky-jerky schedules this time of year. We very much appreciate you being here, and we appreciate all of your questions, tlcfeedback@gmail.com. I hope you get a chance to dance.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with the